Part 1. Stoic Reflection on Friendship. Have you ever sat in silence and wondered why you have so few friends? Why others seem to move through life surrounded by companionship, while your own path feels quieter, emptier, more solitary? When asked about this very experience, a Stoic man didn't answer with sorrow or self-pity. Instead, he offered a metaphor, simple yet unforgettable. He compared friendship to a diamond, rare, unbreakable, forged under pressure, and often lost among glass imitations. Not every sparkling connection is real. Some shine briefly, some shatter at the first test. In a world overflowing with social invitations, followers, group chats, and smiling photos, how can one still feel alone? The truth, as the Stoic hinted, is that what is valuable is never abundant. Just as diamonds are hidden deep in the earth, true friends are buried beneath layers of time, trials, and trust. After a few painful misjudgments, opening your heart to someone who disappears, offering loyalty that's met with betrayal, you begin to see through the illusion. You realize that not all friendships are genuine. Some are built on convenience, ego, or appearances. And slowly, solitude no longer feels like failure. It begins to feel like wisdom. Another observer once said, "A true friend is not someone you collect. They are someone you recognize. They don't arrive when you're trying to impress. They appear when you're most yourself." But what does it say about you if such people have yet to appear? Does your lack of friends mean you're flawed, difficult, or broken? Or could it mean that you've simply grown too deep for the shallow? Through the lens of Stoicism and guided by the enduring clarity of Marcus Aurelius, we'll explore what it truly means to walk alone and why that path may lead not to loneliness, but to something far more honest and lasting. Part 2. Shyness, Introversion, and Stoic Inner Strength. In a society that celebrates loudness, where charisma is often confused with confidence and popularity is mistaken for depth, it can be difficult to walk quietly and still feel seen. The world seems designed for extroverts, for those who dominate conversations, network effortlessly, and gather friends with ease. But for many, especially those who identify as shy or introverted, social interaction is not a playground but a puzzle, one missing pieces they can't always name. Shyness is often perceived as social inadequacy and introversion as emotional distance. Yet through the lens of Stoicism, we begin to see these traits not as flaws, but as untapped strength. The Stoics remind us that power does not always come with volume. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you." To the introvert, this is not an invitation to retreat, but a call to embrace. Your quiet nature is not a barrier to connection. It is simply a different kind of bridge. Introversion, at its core, is the ability to reflect before reacting, to observe before speaking, and to listen not just with ears, but with presence. Stoicism teaches that we must master ourselves before we can interact meaningfully with the world. For the shy person, that means understanding that silence is not weakness, and pause is not failure. These are forms of restraint, and in Stoic practice, restraint is a sign of strength. Imagine entering a room full of strangers. While others rush to speak, you take a moment. You measure the space. You observe, feel, and think. Stoicism tells you this is not hesitation, it is awareness. You don't have to outshine others to offer value. You only need to bring your full, authentic self. You're not here to perform, you're here to be. The Stoic doesn't seek attention, they seek alignment. You are not here to win over everyone. You are here to express what matters, to connect with those who resonate with your values. When you speak with intention, when you listen with care, you create something deeper than charm. You create trust. In a world noisy with superficiality, your stillness can be a kind of refuge. Being shy or introverted doesn't mean you are incapable of friendship. It means you seek something more real, You may not want 100 acquaintances. You might be seeking just one or two souls who understand you without explanation. Stoicism doesn't ask you to become someone you're not. It asks you to be fiercely yourself and to build relationships rooted not in performance, but in presence. True friendship does not begin in noise. It begins in understanding, and sometimes the quietest people are those with the most powerful inner lives, waiting not to be noticed, but to be known. Part 3. Trust Issues and Building Resilient Bonds through Stoicism. Part 3. Trust Issues and Building Resilient Bonds. Through Stoicism, trust is the silent foundation of every meaningful connection. Without it, relationships become fragile structures, ready to collapse at the first tremor. And yet, for many of us, trusting others is not easy. Past betrayals, disappointments, or inconsistencies from those we once believed in leave behind invisible scars, scars that shape how we see the world and how we relate to people. Stoicism doesn't deny this pain. It acknowledges it and offers a way through. As Marcus Aurelius teaches, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Trust, in the Stoic view, begins not with others, but within ourselves. We must first know who we are, what we value, and where our boundaries lie. Self-knowledge is the compass that guides who deserves access to your inner world. Think of trust like building a bridge, stone by stone, not all at once. The Stoic doesn't rush into connection. They observe. They look for consistency in character, not charm in words. They understand that people, like seasons, change. Some enter your life to teach you lessons. Others stay to walk beside you. But none of them define you. When trust is broken, a Stoic doesn't spiral into bitterness. They reflect. What was in my control? They ask. What wasn't? This shift in perspective brings peace. It allows you to grieve the loss without surrendering your emotional balance. It turns pain into wisdom. Building trust again takes courage, but Stoicism provides the armor. It tells you to open your heart wisely, not fearfully, to express doubts openly and invite honest dialogue, to listen with intention, and speak with clarity. Trust is not blind faith, it is earned clarity. And when missteps happen, forgiveness becomes part of your growth, not your weakness. True trust isn't about perfection. It's about being anchored in your values, adaptable to change, and committed to emotional integrity. You don't need to trust everyone, but you must learn to trust yourself enough to know who's worth the risk. In the Stoic journey, trust isn't given lightly, but when it's earned, it becomes unshakable. Part 4. Lack of social opportunities and Stoic ways to reconnect. Sometimes the absence of friends in our lives isn't rooted in who we are, but in where we are, or where we're not. In our fast-paced, digital-driven world, it's possible to be constantly connected and yet never truly seen. We scroll through feeds, send short replies, and maintain surface-level contact, but rarely do we engage in the kind of presence that nourishes real friendship. Often, it's not the lack of people, but the lack of meaningful spaces that prevents connection. Stoicism reminds us that while we may not control the social climate around us, we always have power over how we show up within it. Marcus Aurelius would say, "You exist in harmony with nature. Use your reason to live in alignment with it." That includes seeking out environments that reflect your values and passions. Instead of waiting for connection to come to you, Stoic wisdom encourages intentional action. Volunteer for causes you care about. Join local groups or online communities that align with your interests. Not for the sake of gaining followers or looking busy, but to place yourself where genuine connection can happen. These are not distractions. They are acts of courage, acts of planting yourself in fertile ground. A Stoic doesn't complain about loneliness. They take steps to build a life where friendship can grow. That may mean showing up to a seminar, a hobby group, or a local park, where others gather. It may mean beginning with a single greeting, a shared smile, or a kind question. Even small efforts made with sincerity carry immense weight. And remember, friendship doesn't always begin with similarity. Sometimes it grows out of shared purpose, consistent presence, and mutual respect. Stoicism helps us detach from the outcome. We don't connect to be liked, we connect to live in truth. If you feel alone, don't take it as a verdict. Take it as a signal to move, to reach, to act. The Stoic way is never passive. It is deliberate, aware, and grounded in values. In this way, even in a world that moves too fast, you can learn to slow down and build something that lasts. Friendship begins, not with luck, but with movement. And every small movement you make toward others, when done with intention, becomes a step toward the meaningful relationships you seek. Part 5. Lack of social skills and Stoic growth in human connection. Friendship doesn't bloom by accident. Like any meaningful pursuit, it requires effort, awareness, and practice. Yet many of us struggle with the foundational tools of connection, not because we are broken, but because we were never taught how to build. This lack of social skill is not a character flaw. It's a skill gap. And Stoicism, though ancient, offers a timeless method to close that gap with patience, courage, and self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor of Rome, often reflected on humility and clarity in communication. He did not speak to dominate, but to understand and to be understood. That is the Stoic ideal. Speak with purpose, listen with presence. And for those who feel awkward in conversations, this is powerful. It means you don't have to be charming or witty to be valuable. You only need to be sincere. Building social skills starts small. A quiet greeting, a thoughtful question, a moment of full attention. These may seem trivial, but in the realm of human connection, they are foundational. Stoicism reminds us that our duty is not to control others' reactions, but to master our own approach. Even if someone doesn't respond warmly, the act of reaching out builds your strength and widens your path. Instead of fearing judgment, the Stoic seeks alignment. Are your words aligned with your values? Is your presence sincere? If so, you've already succeeded, regardless of how the conversation unfolds. Every interaction is a chance to refine your practice, to develop grace, patience, and emotional clarity. True connection doesn't require charisma. It requires attention. It requires humility. It requires courage to show up as yourself. Stoicism gives us these tools, not just to endure solitude, but to navigate it into strength. Each time you step outside your comfort zone, you grow, not just socially, but personally. Your voice doesn't have to be loud. It just needs to be real. And that is more than enough. Part 6. Changing Circumstances and the Stoic Understanding of Evolving Friendships. Life is a river in motion, never still, never stagnant. The friends we had as children, the bonds formed in adolescence, the laughter shared during early adulthood, these often shift, fade, or transform as we grow. Changing circumstances, new careers, family commitments, relocations, or inner transformations can pull us away from the very people who once felt like home. But does this mean something is broken? Or does it simply mean that life is unfolding, as it always does? Stoicism teaches us to expect change, not fear it. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." The natural evolution of our relationships is one of those things. We can influence how we show up, how we care, how we communicate, but we cannot force others to walk beside us forever. Some companions are meant for a chapter, not the whole story. Rather than mourn what was, the Stoic invites us to reflect on what is. Who are you now? What do you value? Are the friendships in your life aligned with your present path? Or are they anchored in a version of you that no longer exists? This isn't selfishness. It's self-honesty, and it opens the door to growth, not just personal, but relational. Changing circumstances also offer new opportunities. Just as the tree sheds its leaves to prepare for new ones, we too create space for relationships that reflect who we are becoming. The Stoic approach is not to cling, but to engage fully and let go gracefully when the time comes. Gratitude replaces regret. Friendship, in the Stoic sense, is not about permanence. It is about depth, presence, and mutual respect. Even if a friend drifts away, the impact they had remains. And when we walk forward with openness, we welcome the possibility of new bonds, different perhaps, but no less meaningful. To live wisely is to understand that change is not the enemy of connection. It is its very soil. And from that soil, new roots can grow. Part 7. Shifting Priorities, Personal Growth and the Stoic Balance of Friendship. As we move through life, our priorities evolve. What once felt urgent may now seem trivial. What once brought joy may no longer resonate. This is a natural consequence of growth, a sign that you are changing, learning, and becoming someone new. Yet with that growth, something else often happens. Some friendships fade. It's not that we stop caring, it's that life begins to ask more of us. Careers demand time, family becomes central, our inner lives deepen, and we become more selective with our energy. As responsibilities increase, our social circles often narrow, not because of failure, but because of focus. Stoicism teaches us not to resist these shifts, but to move with them. "He who is brave is free," wrote Seneca. And part of that bravery is the willingness to let go of the need to maintain every connection from the past. Not all friendships are meant to last forever. Some were perfect for who you were, but not for who you're becoming. The Stoic understands that growth involves trade-offs. Time is finite, and every yes is a no to something else. Instead of spreading ourselves thin to please everyone, we are called to act with intention. Better to cultivate a few deep, meaningful relationships than to collect many shallow ones. This is not isolation, it is refinement. When priorities shift, friendships don't always have to end. But they may need to be redefined. A friend who once shared your daily life may now become a seasonal presence. And that's okay. The Stoic doesn't demand permanence. They honor presence when it exists and release it when it fades. Growth isn't selfish, it's honest. And friendships that endure through change are strengthened, not strained, by that honesty. As you evolve, the right people will recognize and respect that transformation. You don't have to stay where you were to prove loyalty. You only have to walk your path with clarity and kindness. Friendship, like life itself, flows best when it's allowed to move freely. And when guided by Stoic wisdom, even the fading of certain bonds becomes an act of grace, not loss. Part 8. Mental Well-Being and Stoic Resilience in Building Connection. Beneath the surface of many quiet lives lies a storm of invisible struggle. Anxiety, burnout, depression, these aren't just personal battles. They shape the way we connect, how we show up in friendships, and whether we feel safe being truly seen. When our minds are overwhelmed, even the simplest social gesture can feel exhausting. Stoicism doesn't dismiss this. It meets it with deep compassion and quiet strength. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Mental well-being isn't about escaping emotion. It's about learning to face it, understand it, and choose our response with clarity. In the Stoic view, emotional resilience begins with awareness. When we feel socially withdrawn or unmotivated, the goal isn't to force ourselves outward, but to observe what's happening inward. Are we avoiding people because we're healing, or because we're afraid? Are we isolating to protect ourselves, or to grow? Practicing Stoicism in times of mental challenge means cultivating presence. A simple breath, a small act of self-care, a gentle check-in with someone we trust. These are not small things. They're the foundation of re-engagement. They remind us that friendship isn't built in grand gestures, but in authentic presence. We may not always have the energy to be social butterflies, but we can still be honest. A short message, a shared silence, a moment of listening. These quiet forms of connection are powerful. Stoicism encourages us not to perform wellness, but to pursue truth. And the truth is, being mentally unwell does not make you unworthy of love, friendship, or belonging. In fact, the people who emerge from these inner storms often carry the deepest empathy, and empathy is the soil from which the strongest friendships grow. Through Stoic practice, reflection, self-discipline, and the commitment to live with integrity, we can protect our peace and still remain open to others. Even on hard days, we can offer the kind of presence that matters. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be present and willing to begin again. Part 9, Lifestyle Choices, Differences in Interests, and the Stoic Path to Deeper Connection. Sometimes the distance between people isn't caused by conflict or betrayal, but by divergence, different schedules, different goals, different lifestyles. As we grow, our days fill with unique rhythms: careers, parenting, health journeys, spiritual practices. The people we once shared everything with might now feel like strangers, not because anything went wrong, but because our lives simply unfolded in different directions. Add to that our interests, what we read, what we value, how we spend our limited free time. One person may love early mornings and journaling, another thrives in late-night conversations and music. These aren't flaws, they are signatures of who we are becoming. Yet they often create quiet barriers, making it harder to sustain the kind of connection we once took for granted. Stoicism teaches us not to fear difference, but to meet it with curiosity and grace. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Adapt yourself to the life you have been given." This doesn't mean forcing friendship where it no longer fits, but honoring what once was and exploring what might still be possible. Instead of expecting sameness, the Stoic cultivates space for mutual respect. Can we admire what we don't fully understand? Can we engage without needing to convert or convince? Friendship does not require identical interests. It requires shared values, honesty, kindness, patience, trust. When lifestyles diverge, connection requires effort. It might mean showing up at a friend's art exhibit even if you prefer sports, or listening to their love of hiking even if you'd rather stay in. These acts aren't about pretending. They're about practicing presence. Stoicism reminds us that virtue is found in how we show up, not just where. You may not find friends who mirror every part of you, but you can find those who complement you. And in learning from differences, both of you grow. Friendship doesn't always flourish in similarity. Sometimes it thrives in contrast, when both hearts are willing. So don't wait for perfect alignment. Seek respectful exchange. In that space, the Stoic finds not just connection, but wisdom, humility, and peace.